Just a gentle and loving reminder to everyone at home. Landlords are scum, and mine in particular is giving me chest pains. So, great. Hello, welcome, and welcome back to Oh, It's Better This Way, where we will find out together if it is truly better this way, or if I've just been lying this whole time. Stay tuned, more at 11. Today I have a video for you that I never thought that I would have for you, because I never thought I would read enough books in a month to actually warrant one of these videos. And so this video that I'm giving to you today is a wrap-up. That's right, a wrap-up for the month of April for everything that I read. And I'm so excited. If you're new here, I have been on this journey for the past 2 years to reignite my love of reading that I used to have in my childhood in order to give myself something to look forward to, something fulfilling, something mentally stimulating, all that stuff, and just to reconnect with my childhood self in this way. And so I've been taking reading a bit more seriously the past 2 years, trying to really build back up my ability to read. You know, when you just don't read for years, and so when you start reading again, you're really slow, you're not retaining a lot. It's a practice, you know? It's something you really need to practice. And I was out of practice for a really long time. I would read things for school, for classes that I had to read, sure, but I no longer had that muscle that made me able to read books for fun, you know? I just didn't have that muscle anymore. And so I've been exercising that muscle, and I feel like ever since probably December, I've been seeing a lot more results, which is really, really nice. And to my surprise, this past month of April, I read 7 books. 7. In March, I didn't read any. I was busy, granted, but I did not finish a single book. But in April, I finished 7. And I am really, really proud of that. I'm proud of all of the reading that I've ever done because it has all been fulfilling to me, or made me happy, or given me something to think about, or given me something that I'm like, oh, I don't like that thing. That's good knowledge to have, though. You know, I always get something out of reading, no matter what. Whether I like it or not, I feel like I get something out of it in some sort of way, you know? But April really just blew my expectations out of the water, and so I wanted to talk about the books that I read. So here we are. That is a long enough intro now, and let's get into all of the books that I read in April. Let's go. So the very first book that I read in April was, I forgot already. I just looked at my computer, but that it slipped my mind. Hold on. Okay, the very first book that I read in April was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I read it on Libby, and I liked it. I thought it was good. I gave it 3.75 stars because it definitely didn't make it into my favorites zone. For me, my favorites typically range from 4 to 5, and the closer it is to 5, the more likely I am to read it again. But 4 is like, I really, really liked this, but I don't think I'll revisit it. Maybe I will, but I don't think so. But so it's not in my favorites, you know, but I did really enjoy it. I loved the interview style. My main issues with it, which I think are pretty minimal because it really only stuck out to me twice, was that at some points I thought that the relationships between the characters just came out of nowhere or didn't make sense. But that was really, if I remember correctly, that was really only at like 2 different spots where it felt really out of nowhere like that. But for the most part, those people felt like real people. That felt like a real band. And I thought that that was really cool. I thought that was just really inventive and wonderful storytelling, and the storytelling really matched those people. And I loved that it was, years and years later sort of thing. This was the first book I've ever read by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I would read more. I really did enjoy it. The second book that I finished this month is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke, and I loved this. I give it 5 stars because I definitely see myself revisiting this time and time again. I really do. So for anyone who hasn't heard of this book before, this book exists because a young poet wrote a letter to Rilke asking for writing advice. And so in here is everything that Rilke wrote back, basically, giving just wonderful, wonderful advice, wonderful and detailed, and I really loved it. A lot of the stuff in here I have been thinking about in my own life, and then a lot of the stuff in here I have not been thinking about, and it was really eye-opening to me, especially as a young writer, and honestly as an artist in general. I feel like any artist of any background especially could really get something out of this, but perhaps even people who aren't really in the arts, I feel like, could get stuff out of this. So I really, really loved it, and it was only 90 pages, but after I finished it, I was just beside myself. I felt like I was a gaping hole. I was cavernous. I was hollow, okay? And I would just sit and be like, oh my God, ow, I was just a pit of feelings after I finished it. It really did something, and I still think about passages in here, and so I will definitely be going back through this, because I don't believe I really annotated at all. It doesn't look like it. But I would love to annotate this at some point also. And yeah, I just love this, and I especially just really love this copy, only because it is from Shakespeare and Company, so it also just has a special place in my heart. And yeah, banger, loved it. The third book that I finished this month, I actually talked about briefly in my last video, which was a book haul, but it is Burning Butch by R.B. Mertz, and I loved it. Come on. I gave it 4.5 stars because I could see myself rereading maybe parts of it, but I don't know if I would reread the entire thing. Maybe I would. I feel like I would. I don't know though, but 4.5 stars, okay? 4.5. I really loved it. I just think it is beautiful, really. What else is there to say? I mean, there's lots to say, but anyways, this is a memoir, and it's detailing R.B. Mertz's experiences growing up gay and Catholic, and really trying to suppress that first thing in order to fit better into Catholic spaces and to survive them, really. And it is at times just so gut-wrenching, and it made me want to claw my heart out. But then at other times, there's just such beautiful moments of levity and lightness and joy. And that, I feel like, makes it honestly even more heartbreaking, just the entire whole of this book. It's so beautiful, and it's written beautifully, and it's so thoughtful and contemplative and reflective and really wonderful. I don't want to say too much about it, but I will just give some warnings that it does talk about molestation, incest, and also suicide. So please, if you have dealt with things like that, be careful if you are considering picking this book up. I really love this book. I love reading stories by non-binary lesbians, and yeah, it's very important to me. I think this book also touched me very specifically as well, simply because I also grew up gay and Catholic, I understand a lot of what's going on in here. I didn't go through as extreme Catholicism as they did, because definitely there were some cultish activities in this book, which I didn't really deal with, but I did go to Catholic school from the time I was 2 to the time I was 17, and my first non-Catholic school was college. So I do understand a bit of what is going on in here, just like the general vibes of the community and everything. But yeah, I loved it. You should definitely check this book out. And yeah. And also, we just also need to appreciate the cover. It's really good. It's really, really good. It's a really good cover. Really good cover. Also, all of the titles are songs from different musicals because they're a musical theater lover, and there's talk about theater throughout the book as well. And it's just really nice. So especially also if you're into theater, it's really nice seeing how that is interwoven into the story. And the story is told not in chronological order, and it's just really wonderful. It's beautifully told. The fourth book that I finished in April was actually the first manga that I've ever read, and I've been wanting to get into manga for quite some time, but I just didn't know where exactly I wanted to start because I don't have a ton of experience reading any type of graphic novel sort of venture, And so I just didn't know where exactly I wanted to start, but I found this book recently and I was like, yes, I want to start here. This is where I'll be starting. And so that book would be Blue Period by Tsubasa Yamaguchi. And I'm really glad that that's where I started because I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.75 stars. The art was beautiful. I think my only thing with it that I didn't super love was that at some points when they were talking about the physical practices of art, it did feel like a little too in detail, but I think that also is just because I have taken art classes for years and taken art classes in college and things like that. And I do art, so I feel like really part of that was just that I am not a very beginner like the character is. I would be interested in knowing someone's opinion about this manga who is a person who is a very beginner with art, just like the character is, because that I'm sure just is all incredibly fascinating to them. But a lot of it is stuff that I kind of know of already, So that was my only thing, but I really did like this. The main character is this delinquent punk who still somehow gets really good grades, because he has the secret to studying or whatever, but he doesn't really like anything. That is, until he finds art, and he then really wants to go to university for art, just out of nowhere, just because he really fell in love with it, and it's the first thing he's ever really loved doing, And I thought it was really fun watching that unravel and really watching his interests grow, and I felt very connected to the character because I went to school for musical theater, but I wasn't yes, I want to go to school for musical theater. I didn't decide that until the August before my senior year, whereas typically people who go into that field will be training with a coach at least through junior year and senior year. So I got started very late for that and was just still very much a baby in the musical theater field. I didn't know what a book was, like an audition book. So it was a mess. But it was just really, really nice to relate to that character in that sort of way, My camera cut me off because it wanted to die, I guess. So I had to charge the battery for a little bit. But yeah, we're back. I think that I said everything that I had to say about Blue Period, but in case I didn't, it was fun. And I enjoyed it. All right, so back to the books. I gotta refine my place, reorient myself, So the fifth book I read in the month of April was Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and I also read this on Libby, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I could really clearly see everything happening in my head. It really was doing that whole book is movie in brain thing, It really was doing that for me, and I loved that. And this book had a lot of little details, a lot of complexities, to it. All of it made sense. All of it tied in together. All of those complexities were handled just so well. I feel like, objectively speaking, this is a very well-crafted book. And I really liked it. I really liked the story. It felt very grounded, but it still had its more symbolic parts of it. Like the fire is such a big dramatic thing. And there was a lot of drama towards the end that I really liked, but it felt really grounded in reality. I really liked how it was told. The way it was told almost reminded me of kind of books that I would maybe sometimes read in school. I don't know, it just really feels like someone is relaying a story to you. Like a story that happened to them or something, It really has that quality to it. It felt really personal, I guess, that way. And it was really nice. I really enjoyed it, and I loved the characters. They all felt very real to me, and I loved getting to know them. This book was a smash hit for me. Loved it. If you hear tearing sounds, it's because my rabbit is tearing up paper, which I gave her to do that with because we love a chewing and digging queen, and she needs things to tear up. But yeah, if you hear paper shredding, it's because it is, and it's because of my rabbit. So yeah. The 6th book I finished in April, which I still am like, I can't believe I'm even saying that, because reading at all is successful and great. But reading 7 books to me feels like that's nuts. I really maxed out my expectations, and I feel really good about that. Yeah. But anyways, the 6th book that I read was Blue Period Volume 2. So yes, I am continuing on with the series, basically for as much of it as I can find on Libby. Unfortunately, not all of the volumes are on there, but quite a bit of them are. So I will be reading all of the ones that are available to me. And then once I finish those, I will cross that bridge when I get there, when it comes to the other volumes later in the series. But I digress. We're focusing on volume 2 right now. I gave this 3.75 stars as well, because it still had that more, really going in depth with the technical elements of art, which again, I do think serves it, but for me just became a little bit tedious just because I know a lot of the things. But I really liked it. I really loved getting to see this character really getting into art even more so, and really focusing on studying and having to deal with jealousy and learning how to learn from others but not compare yourself to others. It just felt really real. Like I said before, I really related to this character's story, and I continued to relate to this character's story because in college I felt a little bit behind, and I had to figure out how to learn from others but not compare myself or get jealous, And I really needed to learn those things just as this character is having to learn those things, and it's just really nice to see that kind of reflected. And again, the art style is great. I think it's great. I think it's awesome, dare I say. Also, I just remembered the one character who is a gay boy who wears drag. Love her. Love her. The 7th and final book that I finished in April, I really, really love, and I think is really going to stick with me for a while. And so that is Other Women's Kitchens by Allison Binney. Oh my god. Oh wow. So I initially got this from Gaze the Word bookshop all the way over in London. I have a book haul of all the books that I acquired in my time over there, if you'd like to check that out. But I got this there, and it's, a small, skinny little pamphlet, little poetry pamphlet. Oh man, the poems in here. I love them. I love them. I love this. I thought that this was spectacular and absolutely stunning. So Alison Binney is a lesbian, and so I could really relate to a lot of the stuff in here. This was just sensational, and reading this really felt like a coming home of sorts. And quite honestly, I enjoyed every single poem in this collection. And my top 2 favorite poems in the collections were called How We Knew and Grain. There is even a poem about a rainbow in here, and I was like, at first before I read it, I was like, But then I read it and I was like, wow, like that's beautiful. Because sometimes I find that when writers talk about, I don't know, like the rainbow is obviously a very big symbol in the gay community and can easily be a cliche when writing about it, you know, in more artistic writing. But this poem was beautiful. It was beautiful, and so it surprised me, honestly. This collection is a distinct and personal exploration of the lesbian identity and all that it means, all that it stirs up from our pasts, and all that it can mean for our futures. And simply put, it is gorgeous. It's beautiful. I really love it. I'll definitely be looking out for more of her work, and if you read poetry, I really do recommend that you pick this one up and read it. I'm so glad I picked this up. Also, again, cover art, beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, well, those are all of the books that I read in April. Again, I'm really proud of myself. I think I talked about this earlier, but in March, I didn't finish any books, which is fine. I was busy. But this month, I feel like I just exploded into reading a bit more, and it was a really nice feeling, and it made me feel accomplished. Not that reading needs to make me feel accomplished, but it did in a way, you know, still, because I've been trying avidly to get back into reading for the past 2 years, and this was a month where I really felt that come into fruition, and it was just really nice. I love reading. I love reading all of these books, and I'm really glad that I had the time to, and that I was able to read some stories that I really liked. It felt very successful because I liked everything. But yeah, my camera's trying to die again. So thank you so much for being here and listening to me talk about these books. And yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks for hanging. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. This was a very rushed ending, but just know I appreciate you.